Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a really big idea, a model that tries to map the evolution of human values themselves. It's called spiral dynamics.
So let's get right into it. Ever look around the world or even just your own town and wonder how people can see things so differently? It's like we're all playing by completely different rule books. Well, this theory we're talking about today, spiral dynamics, claims there's a hidden pattern to it all, a kind of code for how we develop.
So, what exactly is it? At its heart, spiral dynamics is a framework, a map, and it's built on one huge idea. Human consciousness isn't fixed, it evolves. We move through these different stages, these different worldviews, and we do it in response to the problems life throws at us. Okay, so that's the big picture. But how does it actually work? What's the engine that keeps this spiral moving?
The core idea is actually pretty simple, but it's also really profound. A new way of thinking doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It emerges because the old way just isn't working anymore. It can't solve the new, bigger problems we're facing. And this part is absolutely crucial. No stage is better than the one before it. It's just more complex, designed to handle a more complex world.
All right, now we get to the most famous part of this whole thing, the color-coded stages. The creators called them V-memes. It's kind of like a mashup of values and memes, the core ideas that define an entire worldview. The whole model is broken down into two main tiers. This first tier, which has 6 different color stages, pretty much covers the entire sweep of human history, from our earliest ancestors just trying to stay alive, all the way up to our complicated, modern, interconnected world. And you can see that whole journey right here. It all starts with beige, that's pure instinctual survival. Then comes purple, finding safety in the tribe and in mystical spirits. But those traditions can feel constraining, which leads to the breakout of impulsive, egocentric red, where might makes right. All that chaos from red creates a desperate need for order, and that's where blue comes in, a worldview based on absolute truth and a higher purpose. But blue's rigidity gets challenged by orange, which is all about strategy, science, and individual success. And when that pursuit of success feels hollow, green emerges, focusing on community, equality, and our inner lives. You see the pattern, right? Each stage solves the problems of the last one, but creates a whole new set of problems for the next stage to solve. Now, according to the theory, the jump from that first tier to the second tier, well, it's not just another step. It's called a momentous leap in consciousness. It's that moment when a person, or maybe even a culture, stops seeing all the previous stages as wrong and starts to see them as necessary building blocks of the whole system. This is what gets us to yellow. Yellow thinking is systemic, it's flexible, it can see the value in all the previous colors and can integrate them when needed. And beyond that, there's turquoise, a truly holistic worldview that sees the entire planet and every living thing as one giant, interconnected, conscious system. So, where did this wild, ambitious, colorful theory even come from? Well, you might not be surprised to learn that its origin story is just as layered and complex as the model itself. If you look at this timeline, it all started back in the 70s with a psychologist named Clare W. Graves. His work was then picked up and popularized in '96 by Don Beck and Chris Cowan. They're the guys who published the book and added the famous colors. But then, as we move along the timeline, you can see the fractures starting to appear. There were big disagreements over trademarking, and a new collaboration with the philosopher Ken Wilber led to a major, major split. So if you go looking for spiral dynamics today, you're not going to find just one theory. You're going to find at least 3 different branches. You've got Cowan's group, which sticks to the original research, Beck's group, which is more focused on applying it in the real world, and then Ken Wilber's version, which is much more spiritual.
And this slide really shows you a key part of that split. To make the model fit into his bigger spiritual framework, Ken Wilber actually changed some of the colors. He switched purple to magenta, for example, to align the stages with the chakras. You can imagine, for the original developers, this was a huge deal. They felt he was twisting Graves's data-driven work into something else entirely.
So, what do actual academics and critics think of this model? A model that's inspired so many people, but also caused so much drama among its own creators? Well, here's the thing you absolutely have to know. While it is huge in management consulting and New Age philosophy, you are very, very unlikely to find spiral dynamics being taught in a mainstream psychology class. It basically lives outside of the academic world.
And some of the criticism? Wow, it is sharp. This quote from the journalist Patrick Vermeeren pulls zero punches. He calls it an ideological construct that is in blatant contradiction to scientific facts. That's about as harsh as it gets.
The main arguments you'll hear against it are things like its historical timeline for when these stages appeared is just flat out wrong, it relies on fuzzy, kind of esoteric concepts, and the big one, it lacks hard empirical proof. For a lot of critics, it looks less like a scientific theory and more like a commercial product for business consultants.
And yet, and this is what makes this whole topic so fascinating. Despite the lack of academic love and all that harsh criticism, its influence is just undeniable. It continues to spread.
I mean, its ideas have popped up in a ton of different fields. Everything from leadership training to designing cities. It really seems to appeal to people who are looking for a way, any way, to make sense of our complex and often contradictory world.
And maybe the most famous application ever was back in the 80s and 90s. The co-founder, Don Beck, made over 60 trips to South Africa. He was using this model to help all the different groups talk to each other during the incredibly tense and complicated transition away from apartheid. That's about as high stakes as it gets.
Which really leaves us with this massive puzzle, doesn't it? Why does a model, with so many scientific question marks hanging over it, continue to resonate so deeply with so many people? What is its secret sauce?
So, is it a genuine map of human consciousness, or is it more like a really powerful, elegant myth? Maybe its true value isn't about being scientifically provable. Maybe its power is that it gives us a compelling story about ourselves, a story that helps us understand our past, make sense of our chaotic present, and maybe, just maybe, imagine a better future. The debate, just like the spiral itself, continues on.